Taichi was a deadbeat loser who had nothing going for him until he suddenly got Isekai'd to a strange world and became an overpowered magician that got all girls wet. He was just on his way to school with Rin one morning when a mystical leaf flew past him and whispered his name. He immediately turns to look, wondering what it is, and then he suddenly sees a stupid biker riding towards them and almost hitting Rin, so he quickly draws her out of harm's way. Meanwhile, at an unknown castle in a different world, a young mage princess completes drawing a magic circle. But as she attempts to begin the ritual process, an assassin suddenly attacks her subordinate. The young mage wonders how the assassin found out about this, but the dude moves closer to the magic to spill blood on it, which immediately cancels the magic spell. However, as the assassin intends to send her to the glorious beyond, the subordinate stabs him from behind, saving the princess. In our world, Taichi wonders why idiots like this are even existing, and while he makes sure Rin is okay, a magic circle suddenly forms beneath them, shocking them. Taichi immediately tries to move away, but the circle follows him, and he instantly realizes that he is the target. Thinking that the anime gods must have chosen him for a greater purpose, he pushes Rin out of the circle. The magic circle starts to whirl around him, and being scared, Rin runs back into the circle to touch him as though that would stop anything. However, both of them suddenly vanish and get Isekai'd to an unknown world. As Taichi wakes up, he quickly goes to wake Rin up. They wander around wondering where they are and can't even make calls since there is no network coverage. Taichi suggests that even though he knows this only happens in games, he thinks they have been transported to another world through that mysterious circle. However, Rin, not wanting to believe that's the case, tells him to shut his disgusting mouth, saying he is suffering from watching too many anime recaps. Suddenly, a monster horse appears and starts running toward them like a bull, but they manage to evade its first attack. Taichi tells Rin to escape while he deflects the monster, but she tells him that this might lead to his death, and he replies that this is exactly why he is asking her to escape, so the monster won't use her for dinner after feasting on him for lunch. He immediately charges toward the monster horse and throws a stone at it to distract it from Rin while she escapes. The monster returns the favor by charging toward him to isekai him to the next world, but an ugly bald beast saves his ass. His other partners also appear and ultimately destroy the monster. At the same time, the ugly dude with a shiny dome named Baradat informs him that the beast is called an obsidian horse, surprising him because he was never taught that in biology class. At that moment, Taichi realizes that they are in another world that he has only seen in games, and he becomes determined to find out how to survive in this world with Rin. Later that night, while they spend some time getting along with the adventurers, Taichi notices that Rin is mad and later meets her to ask her why, but she gives a typical answer common to women: no. However, after some cajoling, she tells him never to try what he did earlier again, acting like a superhero and putting his useless life in danger. She tells him not to leave her alone in this dangerous world because he wants to show off that he is a man, and he moves closer to make a promise never to do something so stupid again. The next day, the adventurers take them to the nearest city. When they separate, Taichi and Rin express their desire to become adventurers, even though the adventurers try to talk them out of it because of how dangerous the job is. The two head to the Adventurers Guild to register as adventurers. Upon seeing them, the receptionist asks if they are of the human race, which leaves them wondering if they look like animals or if the receptionist is just high on crack. The receptionist hands them the adventurer's guidebook, and afterward, she brings out a crystal ball to conduct the magic aptitude test. Rin goes first, and as soon as she touches the ball, the Microsoft logo appears, shocking the receptionist. She wonders who the heck she is and immediately tells Taichi to also place his hand on the crystal. As soon as he does, the ball cracks, further shocking her. She leaves immediately to call her boss, and Gimli from the Lord of the Rings appears. He tells them they can't register them as adventurers yet as they have to go somewhere first to get the advice they need. Mira then takes them to Lamia, who gives them a disc board to measure their magic capacity and strength. She then casts a spell that causes the discs to glow, which immediately shows their magic strength. Upon checking it, she is surprised at the numbers. Taichi asks if this means they can become adventurers, and Lamia tells them yes, but on the condition that they both be her apprentices. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the assassin that almost unalived the young mage earlier reports to his boss that although the summoning was successfully sabotaged, the casters still managed to activate the spell, which caused the Lost Ones to be summoned from another world. They have been searching for the Lost Ones, apparently Taichi and Rin, but haven't found them yet. Then the boss orders him to continue searching. Lemia soon reveals that Taichi's magic capacity is 120,000, while his magic strength is 40,000, shocking him. She also reveals that Rin's magic capacity is 37,000 and magic strength is 5,000, then states that the figures are astounding. Rin is surprised, and Mira reveals that humans with a magic capacity higher than 10,000 and a magic strength of over 2,000 end up as knights and royal mages. Even Lemia is just a little stronger than Rin. Lemia reveals that this is why they have to become her apprentice. They are walking terrors who don't even have any idea how powerful they are, and they could get themselves destroyed if they are not monitored. This causes Taichi to ask what will happen if they train and know how to use their powers, and Lemia says that they would be well above S-rank adventurers and top royal mages in no time. Meanwhile, she further reveals that depending on his training, Taichi could wage an infinity war on entire nations and pull a Thanos on them. Later, while they eat, Mira explains the concept of magic spells to them, stating that they can only be used with the aid of magic spirits. Rin, being curious, asks if it's impossible to use spells with the spirits, and Lemia explains that there are 4 attributes: fire, water, wind, and earth, which are accompanied by their respective spirits, and magic power has to be paid to them for the spells to be cast. Rin quickly catches the idea of it, and Lemia commends her brain, unlike Taichi, who's got an empty skull and is only concerned about eating. Lemia, continuing her lecture, explains that the mages can't choose the attributes to use, because the spirits themselves choose the mages, and each mage can only use one of the attributes. However, there are rare cases where a mage can use more than one attribute, one of which is Mira, who can use 2 attributes, and Lemia, who is capable of 3. Lemia then reveals that Rin is an extremely rare case, because she can use the whole 4, which makes her a quad magician. Taichi is surprised to hear this, and immediately asks what his own is, but becomes disappointed when Lemia tells him she doesn't have any clue. However, she says they have discovered that he is not a mage but a sorcerer. They wonder what the difference is, and Mira explains that while mages borrow the power of the spirits to cast their magic, sorcerers are OGs. They can control the spirits themselves. However, she further explains that the sorcerer needs to forge pacts with the spirits he commands. She then says that this is why he has the power to destroy entire nations, but Taichi replies that he doesn't give a about anything that has to do with nations or anything like that. Following this, they begin to train, with Lemia training Taichi and Mira training Rin. Meanwhile, Taichi is so useless and dumb that he doesn't get anything he is being taught, while Rin surprisingly gets the basis for controlling the fire attribute very quickly, and even surpasses the scope of Mira's knowledge. Following this, Taichi lies on the ground after many failures, feeling frustrated about his miserable life, and wishes he only made a cameo appearance in this anime instead of being the MC. Rin comes to meet him and encourages him to try again. However, just as he tries to channel his magic power, he hears an inner voice guiding him on what to do, and he is surprised, wondering what it is, especially since it's that of a child. He suddenly activates his magic, exciting Rin. Meanwhile, he asks her if she heard any voice, but she tells him no, and he tells her not to worry about it. Later that night, after dinner, Mira meets Lemia to discuss the 2 strange characters who came out of nowhere and suddenly were able to manifest their magic powers in one day. Lemia tells her they need to thoroughly train them in 3 weeks to become strong, because their existence alone creates danger, and if the knowledge about their power manages to get out, they will be the target of everyone. Some weeks into their training, Taichi and Rin are now powerful enough to isekai monsters. However, after sending a couple of monsters to hell, an obsidian horse suddenly appears to attack them, scaring Mira, who is watching from afar. But this time, the godforsaking monster is just a piece of cake for them. While they have dinner that night, Mira and Lemia congratulate them for passing their graduation exam, and then inform them that they will be setting off Aspire the next day. Lemia soon reveals that they are the 2 lost ones, leaving them wondering what the heck that means. She explains that they were summoned by a powerful sorcerer from another world, and soon as Taichi hears this, he is shocked that Lemia had known all the while that they were from another world. He then asks why they were summoned here, and she replies that only the sorcerer who summoned them would be able to answer that. Hearing this, he declares that all they need to do is to find the sorcerer and after that, return to their world. Easy peasy. As though it were a Super Mario game, however, Lemia doesn't discourage him and just plays along. Later the same night, Taichi looks at his glowing palm and he wonders if he really has the power to destroy entire nations. However, as he thinks about this, he suddenly hears a voice call his name, and it tells him it looks forward to meeting him soon, before flying away, shocking him. 2 weeks later, Taich and Ren have now returned to Aspire, and are registered as E-rank adventurers undertaking as many minor quests as they can to get the hang of the game. One morning, while they plan their next adventure, Almeida comes to give them a letter from the guild, and upon reading it, they shockingly discover that they have been summoned. They soon reach the guildmaster's office, and Taichi asks what could have been so important to have warranted an official summons, and the guildmaster's secretary gives them a document containing a work request to investigate a bar in the slums and make inquiries with the bartender. Jim Lee explains that it has been recently reported that goods stolen from shops and wagons are being smuggled into the city through the slums, so Taichi or Rin expected to find out more information about this. Rin notes that there are 2 X on it, which means others have already failed it twice, and Gimli replies that if another attempt fails, they will have to start asking the C-rank adventurers. He finally offers them that if they solve this, they will be promoted to D-rank, and they immediately get to work. On their way, Rin sees her favorite fruit, Melilla, being sold in a shop, and she immediately goes there to buy it. But they discover that it has gotten way more expensive since their last purchase. As they wonder why the inflation rate here is growing faster than your country's, the seller secretly reveals that there are rumors about how farmers are being attacked by monsters on their way to the city, which has made all the goods on the market scarce and thus expensive. Following this, Taichi and Rain are concerned about the situation and reason that it must be connected to their mission. Later that night, they visit the bar in question and head over to the bartender directly to confront him about the rumors they have heard, but he pretends not to know what they are talking about. They inform him they plan to do business with him, so they exploit the current inflation to make huge profits. And when the bartender shows reluctance, they throw a pouch of money at him, which immediately calls the attention of the other greedy, ugly idiots in the bar. They try to bully them, but the 2 teach them a lesson why whooping their bums read such that they begin to plead for their lives, confessing that they had been sent by a strange dude. The bartender soon agrees that while it's true that the bar sells goods stolen by these guys, it's only a norm in this part of the city. He tells them to leave as he doesn't need their money, and on getting outside, Taichi and Ren feel disappointed that they couldn't get enough information back there. Meanwhile, they had filled the money sack with stones and nails and disguised it as silver. However, on their way back, they perceive that someone has been trailing them, so they immediately get to their heels, but 3 assassins suddenly appear before them. However, Taichi and Rin easily beat them with their magic and catch one of them, while the other 2 manage to escape. They hand her over to the guild, and while they interrogate her, she is assured that her life will be protected from her colleagues, and she confesses to them as Taichi, whom she attacked, had asked them to keep her safe. Upon hearing this, she becomes shocked and wonders why. The next day, when Taichi and Rin return from their mission, they discover that Mayra has come to visit them, and they are happy to see her. Following this, they talk about the situation in the city and what they experienced on their mission, which surprises Mira. She reveals that she came to meet them to ask them to form a party with her. She tells them about a farm in the northern region, which has a lot of Melilla fruits ready for harvest, but there have been incidents of robbers attacking the farms and stealing the produce. However, the farmers have not been able to fight back because the robbers seem to have a magician backing them. They have been called to assess the situation and put a stop to it while defeating the magician, and the reward from the quest is enough to buy them a Lambo. They set out to the village, and upon getting there, they introduce themselves to the indigents who beckoned on them. However, as Taichi shakes hands with one of them named Kasim, he notices something strange, but he doesn't know what it is. Following this, they are taken to the farm, but as they walk through the forest, Rin's staff suddenly starts to glow, making them realize that a powerful beast is approaching them. An ogre and some orcs suddenly appear out of the forest and start threatening to attack. Taichi, Mira, and Rin immediately launch attacks and defeat the monsters quickly, with Taichi Isekai'ding the boss in one move. Later that night, while Taichi and the other 2 discuss the occurrence which happened earlier in the day, Taichi points out that since ogres and orcs generally don't live in the northern forest, it means someone must have set them up. So Mura suggests that they set up their own traps for the enemy to see their next move. Meanwhile, deep inside the northern forest, a strange, horrible creep absorbs the life force of several animals, while laughing mischievously and claiming she is going to finish off the adventurers before disappearing. Meanwhile, back at the guild, the captured assassin thinks about how strong Taichi was while she fought him, and she wonders why he didn't eliminate her, when he clearly had the power to do so. The guildmaster soon appears and asks her if she has made up her mind on what to do, to which she replies yes. The next day, as Tai Chi and the party journey through the northern forest, they see some footprints and the trace of a camping fire, making them realize that some people have been here earlier. Rin's magical staff suddenly starts to glow, and she immediately perceives that there are 3 humans lurking somewhere in the forest. So they run toward the direction and find 3 morons stealing the Malilla fruits. The thieves try to fight, but Tai Chi and his side chicks quickly overpower them and tie them up, before the farmers take them away. Afterward, Kasim walks up to Kasim to shake hands with him in appreciation for helping with the situation. However, Tai Chi experiences the same thing as he did when they first met, and he suddenly asks him why his hands are so soft, unlike his colleagues who have rough hands due to the nature of their farming job. The other 2 girls also ask him how he could immediately recognize the ogres and the orcs that attacked the previous day when he probably shouldn't have seen them before. Kasim, realizing that his act has been exposed, reveals that he has been responsible for all the events that have happened, making them wonder why he did those. He tells them he only did it to draw them out. The strange girl from the previous day suddenly appears out of thin air, shocking Tai Chi and his chicks. She calls herself Grammy and offers to give them the best time of their lives. She immediately faces Mira and Rin, while Kasim focuses on fighting Tai Chi man-to-man. The battle begins between the girls with a series of exchanges which make Mira realize that this is damn powerful and is a sociopath who is oddly satisfied with the fight. Rin unleashes a fire attack, but Grammy counters it with her magic. Rin immediately creates a whirlwind that engulfs Grammy, buying more time for Mira to recharge her powers. Grammy cancels this with her sword and shockingly realizes that Rin can activate 2 attributes at once. Meanwhile, as Tai Chi faces Kasim, Kasim summons Frost Elemental, and seeing this, Tai Chi launches an attack immediately but flies right through it. Kasim explains that it's a monster with the Frost attribute, and since it is elemental, it means physical attacks can't affect it. It starts to send attacks at Tai Chi, but he manages to dodge all the attacks. Kasim then brings out the red magical ball that Grammy created the previous day and feeds it to the monster, immediately transforming it into a more powerful red elemental. The monster delivers a hit to Tai Chi, causing his life to flash before his eyes. Kasim then tells him he won't Isekai him just yet, but will rather use him as a pawn after using Grammy to hold Rin and Myra as hostages. He further reveals that he desires his power, but to claim it, he needs shackles that will force his obedience, which is exactly what he will use Rin and Mira for. Meanwhile, the 2 girls are now exhausted from fighting Grammy, but when she thinks she has defeated them, they get back on their feet and launch another set of attacks using a different strategy. They quickly start to overpower her, but she refuses to give in. Rin then unleashes Dust Cascade again, engulfing Grammy with the wind, and Myra strikes it with her fire attribute, causing a dust explosion. While Grammy thinks that's all, Myra suddenly charges at her from within the smoke, and strikes her with her fiery sword, knocking her to the ground. Grammy admits to her loss, but tells them she will come back stronger so she can clap them harder next time. Kasim appears at that moment and is surprised to see that Grammy lost. However, he tells Mira and Rin to stop there if they want to keep Tai Chi alive. They immediately see that Tai Chi is toast and become scared. Kasim then tells them to spread their legs if they want Tai Chi to live. He starts to approach them, and seeing this, Tai Chi feels very powerless, wondering how the heck his weak ass even believed that he could destroy entire nations. He loses consciousness and wakes up in the soul realm where he encounters Ariel, the wind spirit, which asks him if he wants power. He immediately replies that he wants power to protect his chicks, and Ariel tells him that even though this is against the rule, it will lend him its power temporarily. Tai Chi suddenly appears with enormous power surging through his body, shocking everyone. Kasim immediately orders Red Elemental to attack him, throwing him off, and while Kasim thinks he is already incapacitated, he appears again unscathed, shocking him. The monster unleashes a fire breath, but Tai Chi counters it with a wind blast that deletes the monster from existence instantly. Seeing this, Kasim and Grammy become scared and run off immediately. Meanwhile, Tai Chi tries to stop them from escaping, but the time usage for the powers he received elapses, making him unable to move, after which he loses consciousness. Later, as Kasim and Grammy walk across the forest, after escaping, they are surprised that Tai Chi is that powerful. A week later, Tai Chi wakes up to find a leaf on his bed, and while he wonders where it came from, Lemia appears, shocking him. He asks her how he got there, and Lemia replies that he was asleep for a whole week due to the fact that he exhausted all his magic power during the fight, so his body had to regenerate it from scratch. She adds that Mira and Rin had initially taken him to a doctor, thinking it was something minor, until he refused to wake up after 3 days, and they immediately brought him to her, worried. Lemia then asks him what happened back at the Northern Forest, and after he narrates the events, she tells him that Kasim used the Crimson Pact, but Taichi doesn't know what that is. She explains that it's a forbidden magic that uses the blood of men and beasts, and when the orb is imbued with the magic, it will draw out several dozen times their normal magic power. Taichi tells her that the beast was so powerful that he thought he was already done for until Ariel suddenly appeared. Hearing this, Lemia becomes shocked and tells him she doesn't believe him. He asks her to explain what this is about, and she tells him that she now knows what her attribute is as a unique magician. Meanwhile, Kasim gives a report about his mission, and the boss, called the Eminence, is surprised that Taichi eliminated Red Elemental, with only the power of the wind. He commends Kasim for a great job, and then walks up to Grammy to reinforce the pact he had formed with her so she can continue to be Kasim's pawn. He soon takes his leave for a supposed meeting, but before he does, he leaves a document on the table to invite Taichi to the carnival whenever he appears in that room. At the same time, at Lemia's apartment, she reveals that Taichi is a summoner, who has the ability to forge pacts with specific spirits, and is granted the right to use stronger magic based on his bond with them. She adds that both summoners and shamans are equally powerful, but what separates them is the fact that summoners have the ability to hear or see the spirits they bond with. She makes further explanations, which makes Taichi worried for his worthless life. Following this, he heads out in search of his chicks because he hasn't seen them in a while, but on his way, he sees some men harassing another chick, so he decides to intervene because he is Sigma. But he almost turns beta as he sees her weapons of mass destruction pointed at him. However, he beats one of the idiots and they run away. The young lady thanks him for saving her, but he tells her to stop the cat, as it seems she could have saved herself anyway, seeing how she freed herself from the idiots when he arrived. She smiles and reveals that she is the assassin he spared the other night, surprising him. She then introduces herself as Anastasia, and just as her name rhymes with anesthesia, she can make all his pains go away.
Damn!
Taichi is surprised when he realizes that she has also become an adventurer, and they immediately go to the house of the Eminence for their mission. After beating the idiots at the entrance, they get into a room where Taichi finds the document the Eminence had left for him. Upon reading it, he discovers something shocking, and they immediately head into an underground tunnel following the document they found, with Taichi expressing that they need to do something to stop this, as according to the document, a horde of goblins enhanced by Crimson Pacts is hiding here in the city. Meanwhile, as Rin and Miro walk around the city, they are suddenly attacked by 4 assassins. They try to fight them off, but Grammy suddenly appears behind Mira and knocks her unconscious before stealing her away. Rin follows after, roasting everyone who tries to block her into barbecues. She meets Grammy, who tells her that Mira is in the building and asks her to go and save her, because her employer plans to use the Crimson Pact on her. Rin wonders why she is telling her this, and Grammy replies that capturing Mira was not what she wanted. Rin flies to the building immediately, and upon reaching where Merit is, she finds her chained over a red magic circle. The evil mages see her, and one of them walks toward her to show her the orb they have prepared for the ritual. This makes Rin angry, and she knocks him against the wall with her magic. The other mages try to launch their attacks immediately, but she freezes them to the ground, restricting them from moving. She walks toward Mira and breaks the spell using earth magic, before cutting the chains binding her. The Eminence appears at that instant and commands her pulling that off. However, he informs them that in a moment, a group of about 3,000 monsters will attack Asponer. Rin defends that Taichi will do something about it, but he tells her they have distracted him with something else. In the dungeon, Taichi faces a powerful golem, but he quickly destroys it by unleashing a punch reinforced with his magic. However, just when he thought that was all, he notices a room with 2 small girls named Milo and Mello, and several butted goblins. The 2 girls reveal that they made the golems and goblins, instantly making Taichi and Anna realize that they are earth magicians. Taichi asks them what they plan to do, and they reply that they will awaken the goblins and then release them into the city to cause chaos. Taichi tells them that if this happens, it will affect them too, but they bring out a crystal ball. saying this will protect them from the goblins. They immediately activate the orb, and the goblins start to emerge from their buds, shocking Teichi and Nana as they realize that these are goblins formed from the Crimson Pact. He immediately activates his power and prepares to fight. He tells the pretty girl behind him to grab a cup of coffee and be entertained, while he makes a mess of these little cocky bastards. He starts destroying them and sending them to hell, but as he fights, the crystal ball falls from the hands of the two fools who should still be in kindergarten and breaks, which immediately makes them the targets of the goblins. However, Teichi saves them because he is the protagonist and has to do good and tells them, "You see, I told ya." They apologize and he asks them how many goblins there are, to which they reply that they are everywhere in the city. He grabs them and takes them to where Anna is, then he turns to the myriads of goblins approaching, preparing to continue fighting. However, he has been edging the usage of his magic power, but now he decides to go full power mode so he can protect the three girls with him. At the guild that same night, Rin and the others discuss the threat in the city and wonder how to fight against the monsters. Rin comes up with a perfect strategy, but you wouldn't understand it because you missed all your elementary science classes. The next day, as the monsters advance toward the city, Rin implements the strategy, Isekai'ing several monsters at once. Afterward, all the adventurers in the city who had gathered for this immediately launch their attacks, and the battle begins. Meanwhile, Kasim and the Eminence are watching from afar, and are surprised at how powerful Rin is. They soon destroy all the monsters on sight, but some crimson monsters suddenly appear. Lemia immediately charges at them, but her attacks couldn't do much damage, so she turns to Rin and Mira and asks them to hold the monsters off until the count of 30. They both agree to this, and she immediately begins to load up a powerful attack. Meanwhile, Teichi, Anna, and the two girls appear at the guild's tent, and upon seeing them, the guildmaster wonders what the heck he is doing with these little nuggets. But he explains that they are more powerful than they look. He asks about Mira and Rin, and when he learns that they are on the battleground, he tells Anna to stay back and help the other adventurers protect Aspire while he goes to meet them. On the battleground, the three girls have destroyed all the monsters, but three fearful ugly ogres remain. They charge toward them immediately, unleashing their different magic spells. However, one of the ogres resists Rin's attacks, and as she falls to her knees exhausted, the monster approaches her intending to Isekai'd her. At this point, she knows it is time to say goodbye and remembers the time she spent with Teichi, but regrets she never complimented him on how strong he was. However, as she closes her eyes and expects to wake up in nirvana, Teichi suddenly appears, blocks the ogre's attack, and then turns to her and asks her why doesn't she just say it now? Teichi unleashes some attacks and delivers a final punch that sends the damn monster to the ground. He meets the girls and they ask him what his enhancement level is. He replies that he had to increase it to 100, contrary to Lemia's warning not to go above 30, or he would have been a match for the ogre. However, the ogre rises again, and he prepares to face it while the girls handle the smaller monsters approaching them. Meanwhile, still watching, the Eminence expresses his surprise about how Teichi could clear the monsters in the dungeon in just a single night, and Kasim comments that he is on a god level. However, the Eminence talks about a lady who is apparently their master, saying that she had visualized all this beforehand, and they are all just pawns in her hands. Back at the guild's tent, an adventurer reports the situation to the guildmaster that Teichi is currently facing 3 red ogres alone. Hearing this, Anna thinks about him for a minute, touched by how he is the first person to ever see her as a human and not as a tool. She becomes optimistic and declares her belief in him, but as she is about to continue her duty, a strange person in a hoodie suddenly walks beside her, casts a spell that instantly hypnotizes her, and she heads out immediately like a robot. Meanwhile, after a series of jumping around and making fighting sound effects, Teichi finally ice-casts one of the ogres, but before he can make his cool guys don't look at explosions walk, an earthquake suddenly occurs and a twin-headed dragon emerges, shocking everyone. Lemia is surprised and says that dragons don't normally interfere in battles between humans and monsters. However, Teichi, being the only one strong enough to fight it, tells them to leave while he faces the dragon alone. Rin initially objects and offers to join him, but he tells her she will only be a distraction since he wouldn't want her to be injured. Following this, Teichi approaches the dragon, and before he charges an attack, he calls on Ariel, but it doesn't respond, making him wonder if what happened the previous day was just a fluke. However, he launches his first attack anyway, but his punch is no better than a baby's affectionate hit, and he wonders what the hell is going on. The dragon starts to unleash several attacks, but Teichi manages to dodge them. However, it lands a hit with its tail that throws him. Teichi observes the spikes on the dragon's tail and realizes that his axe could have been erased from the planet, but he wonders why the dragon held back from unaliving him. As he thinks about this, Anna suddenly appears in her robotic mode, but soon comes back to her senses and wonders what she is doing here on the battlefield. Teichi quickly urges her to leave, telling her it's dangerous here, but before she can make any move, the twin-headed dragon fires an attack at the distracted Teichi. Seeing this, Anna immediately jumps in to push him away, but gets hit instead. She becomes severely injured, and while she is dying, she tells him he was the person who looked at her as a woman. She attempts to confess her love for him, but changes her mind because she thinks it may be one-sided anyway. She finally dies, and Teichi becomes very furious as he thinks of his promise to her to protect her. He immediately calls on Ariel for her powers, and his soul gets transported to Nirvana, where he sees a young hot chick, the Wind Spirit. She apologizes for not doing anything to save Anna, but says there was nothing she could have done since he has not yet formed a pact with her. She tells him to do it officially, as the previous day when she used her powers was just an exception to the rule of summoning spirits. Teichi demands the power to protect the world, and he immediately forms a pact with Ariel. He returns to this world, and then a surge of power appears around his body, surprising Rin. He then tells her he is now a summoner and advances toward the dragon immediately. He asks the twin-headed dragon why it is interfering in a fight between humans and monsters, and the dragon replies that it will give him an answer if he can show his true power and defeat it. The dragon immediately unleashes a powerful dragon breath, while Teichi summons the power of the wind. After an intense collision of powers between both, Teichi eventually overwhelms the dragon and knocks it to the ground, shocking everyone. The dragon then gives him a reply, saying it decided to intervene based on the request of a certain individual. It adds that the individual will continue to guide Teichi from now on for the sake of Aspire in this world, but he doesn't understand what that means. The dragon finally says it lent the individual its powers because it agrees with their beliefs, and then warns Teichi to become stronger if he wants to protect his treasure. Meanwhile, at the base of the unknown individual, she comments that the test to know Teichi's true power was a success and that she has to prepare his next guidance. Afterward, the city of Aspire returns to normal, but one day, while Teichi and the girls discuss his ability to summon spirits, a lady named Alcina arrives from the royal capital to tell them they have been officially summoned by the king, asking that they lend him their strength in an impending war. On their way to the capital, Lemia asks Alcina about the situation in the country that warranted a summons from the king himself, and she explains that there is a rivalry of power between the king and his younger brother, which has resulted in a brewing war between them, so the king desires their help in this battle. Upon reaching the royal capital, they head to a rooftop to have a view of the city and notice the citizens shutting their windows as soon as they see them. Meanwhile, Lemia, being suspicious of something, asked Alcina if the king specifically demanded that they bring Teichi and Rin along, and she replies yes. Alcina says they should return to the carriage, and as she turns to leave, an arrow suddenly comes flying at Rin, but Teichi quickly grabs it thanks to his spidey sense. The shooter reports back to Ditorisheim, the king's brother, and they are surprised that the rumors about the two foreigners are true. Following this, Alcina takes Teichi and his team to meet King Gilmar, and just as he appears, Lemia confronts him and tells him they will only help if he abides by certain conditions. Otherwise, they will get their asses back to Aspire. After he agrees, she suddenly asks if he is behind Teichi and Rin's summoning, so he could use them to fight against his enemies, shocking Teichi and Rin. King Gilmar, knowing there is no hiding it anymore, confesses that he is the one responsible for their coming to this world and apologizes for it. But Teichi ain't gonna take this crap and stands up to the king, asking if he thinks he can just disrupt the lives of two innocent kids so they can join in his petty family fight, and then tell them sorry afterward. However, the king tells him he will bear full responsibility. Following this, the princess visits Teichi and Rin, looking sad, and she confesses that she is actually the one who summoned them here. She further explains that she is a magician capable of manipulating time and space. She created the magic circle in detail in a way that it would summon only someone who met certain conditions. They wonder what those conditions are, and she lists that the individual has to be capable of learning magic, conveying his intentions, and understanding their world's language. Teichi is surprised that he and Rin perfectly fit those conditions, but she replies no, and then explains that only Taichi fit the condition originally. However, while she performed the summoning ritual, an assassin disrupted the process, which caused the magic to go berserk and beyond her control. This was what caused Rin to be summoned too. Taichi then asks how they can return to their world, but Princess Charlotte, unfortunately, explains that the summoning magic can only be conducted once in a lifetime, shocking them. She begins to cry and apologizes for doing this to them. She then promises to find a way to send them back to their world after all this is over, even if it is at the expense of her own life. Taichi and Rin tell her they believe her and express how they have met some great people by coming here. However, as they continue talking, Lemia suddenly appears and asks Taichi to come out immediately. In the following scene, he is given a sword and challenged by General Sumela, whom she and the soldiers under her doubt Taichi's strength. The two soon begin fighting, even though he is still clueless about what is going on. However, as soon as he realizes that his win will make the soldiers trust in Rin more, he gets serious. After a series of heated exchanges, he considers summoning Ariel and getting done with this immediately. But he immediately changes his mind when he reasons that it might Isekai'd his opponent, so he resorts to using his enhancement technique. He engages in more attacks and counterattacks and eventually defeats her. Seeing this, she immediately feels excited and hops on him, asking him to do her dirty, but Taichi screams hell. No, because he is an innocent, uncultured boy who doesn't even know where a woman's floodgates are located. Later that night, while on the roof alone, he summons Ariel and expresses his concerns about hurting people during the war since he has always fought monsters, but this time, he is facing normal soldiers. Afterward, he decides to visit Rin, but the idiot ends up having a 4K view of her plot. However, he quickly steps out and starts begging. Meanwhile, they are not aware that an assassin is spying on them. The following day at the royal court, Sumela reports that the Duke has begun to mobilize his forces, signaling the imminent start of a civil war. The reports indicate that the Duke's army is about 1,000 men strong. The court quickly begins strategizing on how to counter this threat, but both Taichi and Rin feel uneasy as they'd never faced a war involving human lives before. Lemia sternly reminds them that it's a matter of survival. They must either usher people to heaven or be ushered to heaven. Later that night, Rin and Taichi find some time alone in her room, but Rin is not scared that they are alone because she knows Taichi is a nice guy who would never touch a woman. Rin confides in Taichi about her fears and anxieties. She is deeply troubled by the thought of taking someone's life, and Taichi listens with understanding. He reassures her that she doesn't have to participate in the battle, and admits that it's his fault she got involved in this world in the first place. However, Rin firmly rejects the idea of leaving him behind, insisting that she will stay by his side no matter what. Bro stands to close the windows so they can cheer each other up in private, but notices something strange. Meanwhile, in another room, Lemia teases Mura about Taichi is finally gonna take Rin on a long ride to Cloud 9 tonight. However, she suddenly senses something amiss and decides to head over to Rin's room. Later that night, an assassin sneaks into Rin's room, approaches the bed and stabs it, only for the idiot to discover it's just a decoy made of pillows. The group confronts the assassin, and when he attempts to target Rin again, Taichi steps in furious. The memory of losing his other side chick, Anastasia, flashes in his mind, and he unleashes a powerful attack in his rage. However, the assassin manages to escape and dives into the ground. The following morning, the group, along with the king's army, prepares for battle. Taichi summons Ariel and unleashes a massive strike aimed at the Duke's forces. Instead of directly attacking them, he creates a giant crater in front of them. However, the group is unaware of the Duke's strategy. Instead of deploying 1,000 soldiers armed with swords and axes, he has sent 1,000 men equipped with magical rings. They raise their hand and unleash a powerful attack on the king's army, decimating a significant portion of the soldiers. The magic rings they're using drain the user's life force, meaning the Duke's men are slowly dying each time they use one. The fact that these soldiers are unaware of the ring's deadly cost strikes Taichi as unbearably cruel. Determined to prevent unnecessary deaths, they devise a strategy to defeat the Duke's forces without taking their lives. Moments later, after evading several attacks from the Duke's army, Rin casts a spell that brings forth a storm, with rain and lightning paralyzing the entire army, except for their captain. Suddenly, the Duke's right-hand man turns on the captain, stabbing him without warning. The battle ends and they are all happy that they were able to pull this off. The next day, the king summons Taichi and his team to the palace, where the princess rewards them with special items and weapons for helping in the just concluded war. Among the weapons, Tai Chi chooses a katana, and afterward, they all head to the fighting arena to test their new weapons. Upon seeing Tai Chi, Sumela confronts him, asking him to cross swords with her, but while he delays, she jumps over him and starts riding him like a stallion until he almost passes out from too much jizzing.
Yeah, boy.
He heads out into the city square after this to calm down from the trauma, and while he talks with Ariel, he notices everyone staring at him like he's got poop on his face. However, he soon realizes that they are glazing over him, because he was the powerful hero who saved the city in the last battle. Some children come to him, and after playing with them, he continues his journey, but after a while, he perceives someone is spying on him. He tells the person to stop being a sissy and come out to face him if he's got the balls, and Kasim suddenly appears with one arm. Tai Chi is surprised to see he is now using the same hand to eat and wipe his bum, and immediately asks what happened to his arm. Kasim replies that he was the one who destroyed his arm in their previous encounter when he was trying to escape as soon as he entered the Avatar state. He then tells Tai Chi he hates him, and would make sure he claps him so hard that he would wish he was born during the Holocaust. Tai Chi tells him that the people see him as the good guy, so he wouldn't want to damage that reputation. However, Kasim tells him he has fixed that problem, and takes him to a separate location where they can fight till they can settle scores between themselves. He suddenly brings out a small red statue and says that this will limit Tai Chi's powers and make them even, because he knows the reason he could match him in their previous encounter was because the producers gave him too much power. Tai Chi asks, wouldn't it be a draw if their powers are equal? Kasim responds that their hard work will make the difference, and because he knows that he is a lazy who just got lucky with powers, he would never be able to outbest him based off of hard work. Tai Chi gets insulted, and despite Ariel's warning against it, he agrees to the terms, so Kasim activates the magic item, and it suppresses Tai Chi's powers immediately. He then starts making empty threats like most UFC fighters at a showdown, but Tai Chi ain't in for so he unleashes a wind attack immediately, and the fight begins. After a series of attacks from both of them, they become exhausted. However, Kasim begins to summon his ultimate attack while Tai Chi prepares to resist it. Tai Chi knows he is toast with his remaining magic power level, and he thinks of how to channel it into defeating him, so he quickly goes through what he has been taught in the past. Kasim unleashes a large magic ball at him, but Tai Chi slashes through it with a wind blade from his katana that also hits Kasim and smacks him against the wall. Now that he has been defeated, Kasim finally admits that he is him, and tells Tai Chi that he can get his powers restored by simply breaking the red statue. However, before Tai Chi can make any move, a Dementor emerges from the magic item and approaches him. He immediately slashes through it, but it rejoins again, shocking him. Tai Chi says no one told him there was round 2 with a villain from Harry Potter. And when the Dementor almost harvests his soul, Grammy appears from who knows where and saves him. She immediately breaks the magic statue, restoring Tai Chi's power. But the ghost remains, and Kasim wonders if this was the Eminence's plan all along. Tai Chi immediately unleashes a lightning attack with his full power and destroys the monster in one strike. Later, as Grammy carries the paper tiger away, they suddenly hear the noise of chariots, and they soon realize that the rebel army has declared a war. Meanwhile, later that night, the Eminence reports his failure to a MILF with humongous melons who has been orchestrating Tai Chi's guidance. He then tells her that the preparations for her next guidance are complete, and she gives him a go-ahead. As things get more serious, Tai Chi promises to protect Rin, and she tells him she will also do the same. The next day, the war begins between the king and the duke's forces. As the fight continues, Tai Chi separates himself from the battle and makes a huge leap to the duke's camp using his magic power. He meets the duke and tells him he has come to offer him a chance at peace on behalf of the royal army. He yaps to motivational talk on why love should reign between brothers the king, and then says that the king has promised leniency for him and his men if they surrender at this point. Tai Chi reveals that if he proves stubborn, he will just take him by force to King Gilmore, since he has the power to destroy entire nations anyway. However, as he talks, the Duke's aide, Animecaps, secretly starts to release a dark energy across the ground, which spreads out of the tent and goes to possess the wounded soldiers on the battleground. Meanwhile, each of Tai Chi's party members is faced with formidable enemies sent to defeat them. The Duke refuses the offer and asks Tai Chi why he is not trying to make himself the king, since he has the powers to destroy nations. Tai Chi replies that becoming the king is too much responsibility for a lazy bum like himself who loves zombie scrolling on TikTok, and the Duke suggests that this is why there is an option of being a dictator. However, Taichi wouldn't take such a suggestion because he is the protagonist, and he is supposed to be the good guy. As they continue talking, Ariel suddenly senses a strange energy and informs Taichi about it. Animecus starts to exude a dark miasma around him. At the same time, several soldiers on the battlefield transform into blood-sucking demons that force Rin and her enemy, Susura, into alliance. The Duke wonders what the heck this is, and Animecus tells him that he just decided to give them a little treat by casting a spell across the entirety of the battlefield ahead of time. He then tells Dordesheim that he has only served under him all these years, but there was never a moment he viewed him as his master, as his loyalty belongs to none other than the supreme being who watches over this entire world. Hearing this, Taichi suddenly remembers the twin-headed dragon telling him about a certain individual, and he becomes shocked. Animecus tells him that this evil spell is called the Blood Rhapsody, and Dordesheim asks why he is doing this, to which he replies that it's because it is what the woman instructed. She had orchestrated all of these and made it in such a way that the powerful human from another world would participate. Afterward, Animecus orders his red-eyed, bloodthirsty demons to go into the world and isekai as many people as they possibly can. The war between humans and the demonized humans, and no matter Rin and the others slay them, they keep rising again. Susura realizes that Rin is trying her best not to unalive the soldiers and calls her soft, but Rin tells her that she only wants to use her power to save people and to take their lives. Meanwhile, the Duke tells Taichi that they can't defeat the soldiers until they eliminate the source causing it. He tells him that he believes that the unknown woman Animecus talked about as lending him her powers, and she caused the war in order to drive Taichi into a corner by putting him in this predicament. Dordesheim feels remorseful for what he has done, and Taichi suddenly unleashes his full power and tells the Duke that he will do all he can to protect everyone, even if it means he has to sacrifice himself. However, as he attempts to do that, Ariel stops time and tells him he cannot do this. He tells her it's his fault that this is happening, but she says it's not his fault, as she should rather be blamed for lying to him all this while. She then tells him this is not her true form. Her real form has even greater power than he has seen, but she hid it from him because she feared the power would be too great for him to control and could destroy him. However, she has realized that he is a good guy, and now she will give him her true powers. She tells him this is the last time he will see Ariel, and that she transforms into Sylphid, one of the 4 grand spirits known as the Queen Spirit. Rin and Susura appear at that moment, and upon seeing that Rin has been injured, he immediately goes to hug her, and he promises to protect her. Afterward, he tells her it is time to say goodbye to being human, and immediately channels his power to the dark magic circle, instantly neutralizing it and turning all the demonized soldiers back to humans. However, the battle is not yet over, as Animecus has now turned into a full-fledged S-ranked ugly demon. Taichi immediately flies toward him to battle him. As they fight, he asks Animecus for his master's identity, but he refuses to reveal it. However, he tells him that everything that has happened has been orchestrated by her, even including the princess summoning him to this world. Animecus further tells him that in due time the great battle will begin and this world will be turned inside out, during which light and darkness will invert, and then the woman will appear as the savior. This was why Taichi was chosen, as this world needs the ultimate weapon for it to continue to exist, and he will be that woman's weapon to achieve it. Hearing the crap from his disgusting mouth, Taichi becomes angry and attacks him until he renders him completely useless. Animecus begs him to deliver the final punch, thinking he wouldn't because he cares so much about his good guy persona. But Taichi tells him, "Joke's on you," and says he stopped being human before unleashing a powerful attack that turns him from solid to gas. After this, the war is finally over and the royal capital returns to its peaceful state. The next day, the king calls Taichi and his party to the palace to reward them. The king also placed them within the ranks of the royal army as special forces to be summoned only when the kingdom is in danger. Dordesheim's head is harvested. Taichi and his team then decide to return to Aspire, but while they leave the royal capital, Princess Charlotte promises Taichi and Rin that she will do all her means to return them to their world someday. On her way back, Taichi becomes determined more than ever to protect Rin and ensure they continue to survive in this new world. The end. If you have reached this far, let's confuse the fake fans by commenting, "Rip Taichi." Also, give this video a like. If you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video over here.